Hello everyone. If you like what I'm doing here, please consider subscribing, liking, and commenting. It would really help the channel out quite a bit. Thank you very much.
Antiques? Of course it's illegal, me old darling, but it's not criminal.
Your customers mightn't agree, Sam.
It's what I tell them that matters to the law. So long as they don't actually say the article's old, I'm okay. Show you something. Promise not to put it on TV.
Promise.
Could show that of yours, Joanna, today's world. Here's something from yesterday's world, maybe.
Oh, a beautiful ceramic beetle. An old Egyptian scarab, still with the traces of the original blue paint. Was it part of a necklace? There are holes drilled. 2000 BC?
Last Wednesday, Joanna.
You old crook.
I made it last week. In my little old kiln here. Now, here's another one.
Oh, that's obviously new. Freshly painted, bright as a child's new toy. But the lines of the other were blurred, beautifully, as by the friction of centuries of desert sand.
Same batch. Difference being that I took the old ones down to the farm and fed them to the turkeys.
The Christmas turkeys?
Then my boy scratched the scarabs out of the turkey litter. The grinding in the bird's crop had centuries. We call it in the trade distressing antiques.
Distressing? How quaint. But is distress illegal?
Not so long as I don't claim nothing. Everything in this shop was made sometime this year. All of it by pals of mine, ex-cons. You see, they taught us trades in prison to help us when we got out. I did modelling, foreign ceramics and turkey farming. Mates of mine learned carpentry, cabinet making, welding. The old firm. Class of 82. Now, here's a nice little bureau.
Ah, I think I know this kind. Doesn't it have, just here, a secret drawer? Yes. And look, Sam, there's a little book in it. A diary, a girl's diary. The date, 1789. In lovely old copperplate. It's even faded.
They fall for that one like a ton of bricks. Now, who's the crook, I ask myself, when the punter pushes the drawer back and says nothing? Let them find a secret drawer you didn't notice with something nice in it they're not going to tell you about, and you can name your own price.
Ah.
I've got a room of bureaus at the farm just like this, all with diaries and secret drawers.
You make it sound quite fun. Class of 82 and the rest.
I'd die before I went back inside.
Well, you made something out of it.
Hundreds don't. Prison ages you so. In a way, that gave me the idea of going into the antique trade. You hear about the prisoner's distress when he was sentenced.
Not just a figure of speech, apparently.
Prison wears you out. That's the real punishment. It ages you. It's the time stretching out, the slowness of everything, the rules, all the rules. They make you feel so old. They age you 20 years in 5. You can't move without them. When to walk, when to stand still, how to lace your shoes, lay out your clothes, time of exercise, time of association. So many minutes this, so many minutes that.
You have to think out every move in case you've broken a rule.
In prison, nothing happens of itself. Like an old man who can't trust his legs, has to think out every step, whose body has betrayed him. No, I'm not going back inside, ever. And prison's got worse. It's changing. It's got dangerous, but not in the old way when the big villains ruled absolutely and you had to mind your P's and Q's with them. Something's happening in stir, and none of us like it. Something the government is doing.
government is changing the prisons? I've heard nothing about that.
They built these immense factory wings for canning meat. Now, instead of the old trade, you can learn how to be a butcher. And some of the prisoners disappear.
How can a person disappear in prison of all places?
Special delivery, Mr. Mellish. Heavy, this one.
Ah, thanks, Johnny. Here you are, Joanna.
See you, mate.
Oh, splendid. Muzzle-loading pistol. Octagonal steel barrel. Wonderful wriggle-work engraving. Style of Nelson's time. In working order, I'd say. And brand new.
Crafted in its beauty by a boy who knew nothing but motors before he got pinched for driving other people's away.
You're going to distress that lovely new pistol. What a pity.
It takes really modern equipment to add the patina of age and romance. Now, this is a sonic device they invented for aging wine artificially. You drive this beam of sound vibration into your wine that was bottled yesterday and is 20 years old in 10 minutes. The vibration seems somehow to shatter to pieces, but in wine that releases the flavours. With a bit of extra power in it, it works on antiques. I put the pistol inside, and in half a day, it'll be 2 centuries old and 10 times as romantic. They're very popular.
So long as you don't say how old it isn't. Now, about those disappearing prisoners.
The Home Secretary is aware that there are at present lodged in British prisons 43,311 convicts. But is the House aware of the charge to the nation of this prison population?
Well, no.
The average cost of maintaining a prisoner dry and warm and with sufficient food and clothing is no less than £202 per week, including maintenance of the buildings. I will save the honourable members the task of calculating the yearly cost of this to the taxpayer. It is £10,507 per year per prisoner. Now, that is to say that our convicted criminals, the enemies of our society, are living at a rate far above the national average wage, and indeed at a rate that would keep your ordinary deserving family in some luxury. As a country, we are spending £455 million per year on the outcasts of our society. I would ask the Home Secretary what practical steps are being taken to reduce this load on the budget. Are radical and less expensive alternatives to prison being investigated? Weekend jail and daytime prison would immediately cut this cost and would begin to minimize this drain on our national resources.
I am able to reassure the House and the Honourable Member for East Grinstock that active steps are being taken.
That does not seem to me to be sufficient reassurance. Will the Home Secretary outline these steps?
That cannot be done at this moment in time, as the matter affects national security.
Well, Joanna, I asked your question in the House for you.
I'm beginning to smell a cover-up, Toby.
The newshound nostrils twitch. But what can you do about it? If the Home Secretary says national security nowadays, he has almost unlimited powers of concealment.
Well, there's a very nasty smell here. What could be going on inside the prisons that frightens so my old grass Sam Mellish? And whatever could make it a high-security risk into the bargain? I'm beginning to remember the Nazis. The medical experiments in the concentration camps. Why turn prisons into factories for canning meat?
Well, Joanna, I really don't think it...
It's not impossible. The Americans have used prisoners as guinea pigs and worse before this. In exchange for permission to experiment, they get remission of sentence or parole. Organize that and you've got Auschwitz all over again. Sam tells me that long-term prisoners are disappearing out of the prisons by some kind of arrangement with the authorities. They're called into the governor's office and are never heard of again. Then their families move and turn up somewhere else where they're not known and buy a bright new bungalow as if they've suddenly come into money. But the offender himself, he never turns up.
They've relocated him in exchange for information to get him away from possible revenge.
Yes, but what happens to him? And is ordinary police information a matter of national security?
I've told you, Joanna, there's nothing I can do.
But I can. I can put it on TV. What use is an investigative program like Today's World if it doesn't alert its viewers to dangerous trends in society?
Well, I'll have you in stir yourself very promptly if you break national security.
Well, it's a risk I'll have to take. No government is above the law. But supposing they're infecting prisoners with terrible diseases in exchange for privileges, or experimenting with forms of radiation.
Really, Joanna?
It could be recombinant DNA work, cloning, the invention of new germs using human hereditary material, anything. In a democracy, we have a right to know.
I love you in this formidable mood, Joanna. I wish we'd married after all.
Oh, yes, and me fully occupied in bringing up little parliamentary candidates. Look, Toby, I've had my own TV program 2 years now, and I reckon it's done some good. Children can wait.
Can they? Really? Well, sometimes I think the whole world is like children squabbling. Nursery politics.
That's no way to think of the electorate. My public's a strong, faithful animal. Slow-moving, maybe, but in its wrath and its love, terrible. An elephant, maybe.
No, its memory is too short. And sometimes it seems like a kind of snake that swallows you and squeezes you out of shape.
You're getting cynical, Toby. But I'm not. I'm going to do something. First move, I'm going to visit one of those resettled prisoners' families. But I still can't understand about those canning factories.
Yeah?
Oh, good morning, Mrs. Pettit. We haven't met, but,
My husband's not here.
it's you I wanted to talk to.
I know who you are. Joanna Prim, from the telly. Ron and me, we always watch on Saturdays. You look different somehow. We're not on the telly now, are we?
No, Mrs. Pettit, this isn't game for a laugh.
Oh, that's a relief, anyhow.
Can I come in for a moment?
Oh, yes, of course you can. Please forgive the state the house is in. Come into the front room. Well, Grandad's watching the telly, but you won't mind, will you? I'll turn the sound off. He'll be quite happy watching the pictures. Makes no difference to him. He doesn't really care whether it's on or off. But it's such a business moving him since he can't help himself.
Oh, no, Mrs. Pettit, please, the kitchen will be fine.
Well, I'll put the kettle on. Would you like a sandwich? I've got a new kind of canned meat here. It's very nice.
Well, that's why I want to tell the story on television, from the family's point of view.
I see. You mean he wouldn't come into it?
He's still inside, of course.
Well, yes, I know, but...
Which prison is it?
Well, he's not exactly in prison.
Where is he, then?
No, not exactly. It's,
Secret?
Sort of, yes. Sort of experimental.
How do you mean, experimental?
I mustn't say.
Where is your husband, Mrs. Pettit?
I signed a paper. They said I'd be in jail 10 years if I told. I can't do that. Who'd look after Grandad? You're asking the impossible. I think you'd better go now, Miss Prim.
It's a very nice house you've got here, Mrs. Pettit. Who's paying? All the bullion was recovered. What do you live on now, Mrs. Pettit?
There was an arrangement. Please go. Please go now. Ron? Ron? Ron!
Yeah, what is it, love? I'm watching the boxing. Hey? Well, I never... Joanna Prim. Hey, Peg, you've not been talking to her. She's the woman on Today's World.
This is my friend, Ron, Miss Prim. He wants you to leave. Now.
Then leave I shall. What have you got for me, Sam?
Well, the word is that the big boys are getting restive. They want to know what's going on too. They like the prisons to be predictable. After all, a lot of their boys live there, and they like them to do time in reasonable comfort. But suddenly the prisons have become restive and unsettled, and nobody knows quite why. I was told that we get some quiet help if we wanted to find out.
Oh, that's good news. It's the two unexplained things together that worry everybody, I suppose.
There's nothing a con dislikes more than feeling he's being conned. It's against the natural order of things. Firstly, the disappearing prisoners. Nobody knows what happens after that summons into the governor's office. The con's never seen again. His things are quietly collected from his cell.
And the other thing is those canning wings built onto the prisons. It's a bit gruesome, but I don't actually see anything wrong with that. After all, you can learn carpentry inside. This is simply another trade to help you when you get out. How to cut up meat, how to be a butcher, how to work a canning machine.
It feels wrong.
Why?
Well, they bring in outsiders for part of the process.
Outsiders?
There's some kind of inner room where the meat is actually killed. It's forbidden for cons to go in there, and sections of carcass are passed out. There's something not quite right about the carcasses either.
What sort of something?
Well, they're sort of even, all the same, standard. No legs or heads or haunches, just ribs and backs, shoulders, bellies, just torsos. And nobody's ever seen live cattle delivered. Only lorries with sacks of chemicals. The cons have made a whole lot of jokes about it, and this means they're really worried.
Jokes for survival.
Exactly. They say that doing time has got so expensive that the taxpayer's going to have to save money by canning and eating the convicts.
Oh, dear.
They say that the judge in future is going to give you your sentence not in years, but in hands and finger joints. And for very serious offences, they'll take an arm or leg, or even two legs. And that helps security, you see, since you can't run away if they've eaten your legs. And they say that if you make that deal with the governor, they take the whole of you and turn you into pet food neatly canned. There's more.
More to worry about?
Yep. If it's just a canning factory and slaughterhouse, why do they need radioactivity?
What?
There are red radiation danger signs and special airlocks and people going about in white radiation suits with helmets and all. And then there's Dracula in white.
Dracula in white?
That's what they call him. He visits all the time with his white coat on, or his radiation suit. Dr. Something White, a big wheel in science. They don't like him one bit.
You don't mean Exeter White? Dr. Exeter White?
That's him. Do you know him?
Of course I know him. He's been on Today's World. He's a very big wheel indeed. I gave him a rough time in the interview. He's a fanatic about preparing for nuclear war. He's the only man in recent years to win 2 Nobel Prizes. One was for medicine in tissue culture and cancer research. The other was for physics for inventing a nuclear resonance device that shrinks cancerous tissue. Whatever would he have to do with prisons? Sam, there's only one thing for it.
What's that?
We'll have to break into prison.
Just give your form to the screw there. When he sees it as blank, he'll know what to do.
So the big boys have the screws in their pay.
The big boys have everybody in their pay.
Your business forms, please. Ah, I see. Why, hello, Sam.
Hello, Mr. Preston. All right, are you?
Oh, very good, thanks. This way for you and the lady. But have a bit of a wait.
A broom cupboard.
It's quite roomy, miss. I'll put some clean blankets over there on the shelf for you. Good luck.
Thanks, Mr. Preston.